Okay, so good morning, Year 9. Continuing again with our double lesson, we're going to move on from Lewisham in the medieval period and look at Lewisham's more troubled side of its relation with the slave trade. So you will know of the slave trade from last year's history. You will know how Britain led the way of forced transfer of individuals from West Africa to the Americas to generate profits of plantations and farms, money much of which returned to England to generate its prosperity. Due to Lewisham's proximity to the Thames, many slavers and those involved in the slave trade lived and settled here, as we will find out. So Blackheath and Deptford played prominent roles in Britain's slave trade, one as a port and the other where the traders lived. Andre Erasmus takes a look at this black period in history and some famous people and the institutions who gained their wealth trading in human beings. So just off the A233 near Caesar's Well, the source of the River Ravensbourne and the Keston Ponds, is an old bench nestled in some woodland on a high point overlooking Kent. It was here in 1788 MP William Wilberforce told Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger of his intention to abolish slavery. This mission took the religious MP years to achieve, the trade only being abolished in 1833. It put an end to a thriving trade which spanned some 200 years and included people like the royal family, from Charles I and Elizabeth I through to Charles II, the philosopher of liberty Samuel Pepys, Sir Francis Drake, to the founders of Barclays Bank, the owner of Lloyd's of London, and even the Bank of England. Slavery was a thriving trade in the 17th and 18th centuries, with many of the rich and privileged who built their mansions on Blackheath involved in the trade. They chose Blackheath because of its proximity to London docks, with its connections to the sugar trade, which for most of its history depended on the slave labour of Africans on the plantations in the Caribbean. A number of residents of the Lewisham area also profited directly from the slave trade. One was Francis Baring, after whom Baring Road in southeast London is named. For those of you who know it, it's down here. He is said to have made his first money trading in slaves when he was just 16, indicating his family's immense wealth and business connections with the West Indies. The family business later developed into Baring's Bank, destroyed by the trading of Nick Leeson in 1995. Among the merchants around Blackheath involved with the slave were John Angerstein, the founder of Lloyd's of London, who owned a third share in a slave estate in Granada. He built Woodlands House at Blackheath between 1772 and 1774, where his family remained until the 1780s. He is buried in St John's Church in Blackheath. Another was Ambrose Crowley, an iron merchant who was living in Greenwich in 1704. He made his fortune producing manacles, which are the chains, ankle irons and collars, essentially for securing the slaves during the journey from Africa in barbaric conditions. The wealth generated by the barbaric practice of slave trading created the Industrial Revolution and lined the pockets of the aristocracy and the City of London. In fact, involvement in the slave trade was seen as a respectable occupation in London during the 17th and 18th centuries. Even the National Gallery in London was founded on it, while Lloyd's of London and the Bank of England were immersed in the trade. According to research by Dr. Nick Merriman of the Museum of London, these companies included Barclays Bank, founded by Alexander and David Barclay, who were among 84 Quaker slave traders operating, according to the records of the Society of Friends. Dr. Merriman also estimated Sir Francis Baring earned nearly £7 million from businesses of dealing in slaves which went back 70 years. The founding collection of pictures at the National Gallery in London was given to John Angerstein. He had built up his art collection with the money made from the slave trade and his activities as one of Lloyd's underwriters insuring the slavers. Humphrey Maurice, Bank of England governor between 1716 and 1729, owned 6 slave ships. The Royal Dockyard at Deptford played a significant role in the slave trade. In 1553, the Primrose, a ship built at Deptford 2 years earlier, would provide the first contact between the English and African kingdom of Benin, which we remember from our African culture, kingdoms booklet we do on our single lesson. Finally, Deptford became a centre for those interested and involved in the slave trade and its business in the Caribbean. Official Navy records show that the slave trade was to enrich England for centuries to come and correspondingly depopulate and impoverish Africa. Another of Deptford's famous slave traders was Sir Walter Raleigh. One family appeared to have dominated Kentish shipbuilding along the Thames, the Pett family, who had been master shipbuilders since the time of Edward VI. The woodland providing much of the trees for the shipbuilding was named after them, which is Pett's Wood. The history of South London's links with the slave trade is still evident, with street names, pub names and statues. What I would like you to now do is just pause the video and read this passage on Alluda Equiano, a character who we know from our own knowledge of the slave trade last year. So pause the video now and have a read of that. Once you have done that, I would like you just to pause the video here and have a read of My Diddy, another character who was transported to the UK. So in your exercise books, I would like you to write down the title, which is Lewisham and the Slave Trade. Then I would like you to look at question number 7. Describe 2 ways that slavery has impacted Lewisham. Why has Lewisham such a close link to slavery? Answer this in a full sentence and remember you can rewind to review the information. Why did so many people connected to the slave trade settle and work from Lewisham? Pause the video now and answer that question. Following on from this, what physical evidence is there of Lewisham's past slave trading links? I.e., what can we see today that connects us with this traumatic past? Can you name at least 2 things? And can you give specific examples? What can you see today of the physical evidence of Lewisham's past slave trading links? Once again, just pause the video now and have a go at that question. Next, I want you to think of the social and economic legacy that the slave trade has had on Lewisham. So a legacy basically means something that is handed down. So for example, the people who lived in Lewisham at this time and their connection to the slave trade, and then their ancestors, what legacy does this leave behind? Similarly, thinking financially, the money made by the slave trade, how has that impacted Lewisham through the years? Pause the video, have a think, and then rewrite at least 100 words for this question. Remember, you can rewind at any stage. Your final question links to a character we studied last year, Alluda Equiano, a man heavily involved in the slave trade both as a victim and as an abolitionist. Equiano actually was traded between ships in Deptford, so he was handed from one ship to another down the road from the school. In your exercise books, I would like you to answer who was Alluda Equiano and what were his links to Deptford, and what role did he play in the abolition of slavery. So rewind the video now and reread his passage. As a challenge, have a think as to why his story has been excluded by historians of the past up until now. Give yourself 5 minutes to do this. Your final task is a debate and relates to the incredible events in Bristol relating to Edward Colston. For those unsure, Edward Colston was a man from Bristol and a slave trader. During the Black Lives Matter protest, his statue was pulled down and thrown into the sea. Thinking back to our own area and how some of the local landmarks are similarly connected to this troubling past, i.e. Barring Road, Do you think we should change and rename them? What I would like you to do is just watch this video and then have a think for yourself. So this video is titled, "What do we do with the UK's symbols of slavery?"
The most visceral part was it being thrown into the harbour. Port cities are the place most well known in the UK for slavery. A watery grave. The consequence of slavery is racism.
Bear with me.
Was racism. Because they protested around.
Okay, what I'd like you to do, since I'm having internet problems, is I have posted the link in the Teams assignment section under the BBC link. Can you click on that and have a watch of this video, please? It's only 3 minutes long, but it gives you an idea as to academic kind of views regarding UK symbols of slavery and statues and what we should do with them. What it will enable you to do is to kind of put the similar thinking and similar concepts onto today's task, which links back to Barring Road in Lewisham. So bringing it back to this debate, have a think and pause the video now and have a think as to should Barring Road be renamed. Pause the video now. Finally, I've uploaded a quiz on Teams for you to do after this lesson, similar to a low stakes quiz, as it will allow me to gauge how many students are working and how you're finding the information. Once you have done that, you are finished with today's topic. Many thanks and I'll see you soon. Mr. Shusen.